Let's be honest about Concord. Unfortunately, Concord is basically about to be like known as the worst launch in like gaming history, or at least one of them. Concord was never really gonna succeed, and there's a lot of reasons why. But genuinely, Concord just dropped at like the wrong time. It dropped in a market that's being oversaturated with a lot of hero shooter games and just a lot of better options. No, it's not completely Concord's fault. It's kind of the same thing that a lot of the other battle royale games went through in 2018, where it was just battle royale after battle royale after battle royale, and it just seemed like that Concord was just trying to hop on a trend, and it just didn't pay off for them. But let's just really talk about why Concord actually failed.
Now a word from our sponsors.
Hi, before using Dubby, I was a father of 12. But now, after Dubby, I'm a deadbeat dad.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Let's see what we got in here for the Dubby. Big Dubby. We got the motherfucking... We got the motherfucking... We got the motherfucking... Oh, shit. So the first flavor of Dubby, we have peach and beet.
You what?
Second flavor of Dubby, we got the dragon mayo. Next flavor we have laxative.
What?
Laxy grenade. Next flavor we have this is a zero sugar powder pack. And last but certainly not least, we have Heinz Berry Splash. I'm Wasabi, and this has been your Dubby advertisement.
Now, I'm not gonna waste y'all time in this video just by shitting on Concord and calling it the worst game ever, because that's probably reserved for a lot of other games. But truly, I feel like Concord's biggest problem was that it released at the wrong time, and I feel like it just really wasn't inspired. Like, the game just truly didn't really have an identity. Because honestly, if Concord would have released with more of an identity, it being a hero shooter wouldn't have bothered people that much, as long as it had its own identity and that the game was fun. Because people will genuinely play anything if it's fun to them. Because as much as people shit on Overwatch and Apex, people still play them because they have fun with them. No matter how much talk about how Overwatch is trash and Apex is trash, people play them because they enjoy them and because they have their own identity. Apex and Overwatch don't feel generic when you play them. Even though you can say some of the archetypes of characters may be generic, the game itself has its own identity and is able to stand out from any other hero shooter game that's out there. For Concord, the biggest problem that I had with it didn't look like it had its own identity. It looked very, very generic to me. It didn't really feel like the characters really were anything unique. I don't really care about the character designs, look at how they look, as long as the characters are unique and not necessarily carbon copies of anything else. And the Concord characters weren't necessarily carbon copies, they were just generic, and they didn't really feel like they had anything going about it to make them stand out from themselves. Concord's biggest problem in my eyes, it didn't stand out from the crowd. It didn't stand out from any other hero shooter or honestly any other battle royale game. It just didn't seem like it had its own identity to really stand out from the crowd and be different. Concord didn't really do anything different. Concord didn't really do anything differently, which is why I feel like it went how it went. Concord did everything that every other hero shooter game does and didn't stand out from the crowd. And it also suffered from the same thing that any other battle royale game that came after Fortnite and after Apex suffered. It came into an already saturated market, which people aren't really looking for. People aren't really looking for a brand new multiplayer hero shooter when there are plenty multiplayer hero shooters already out there in a market that's been saturated enough. And especially when there are better choices that play better and feel better, and the characters are actually unique and everything about it is just better than what Concord was, there was no reason to actually even play Concord. Because even something like Deadlock, which isn't even close to being out yet, it's still in alpha testing, I think, right now. That even feels and looks better than what Concord actually was. Concord just didn't feel like it had any identity. Concord didn't feel like it had any identity, and nothing really drove you to go play Concord when there are way more options to go play. There are better hero shooters, there's better battle royales, there are better MOBAs, there's just better everything when it comes down to, okay, do I want to play Concord or do I want to play Apex? The majority of people are gonna go play Apex, they're gonna go play Overwatch, they're gonna go play Deadlock. Concord just didn't do anything different enough to have people say, to have people choose to say, I want to play this game, I want to, even possibly get good at the game. And then also Concord is basically suffering the same fate that XDefiant is suffering, but to a more like, you know, public degree because of how long it took in development and how much money that Sony put into this game just for the product to come out looking how it looked. Concord doesn't look like a $400 million game. Concord kind of looks like, you know, an indie game that is still in development, is still in beta testing, or it looks like, you know, some concept ideas weren't necessarily, you know, thought over or, you know, ran through enough to really make something different. And to kind of stay on the XDefiant example, XDefiant is a good game. It shoots well, it plays well. It's just basically Call of Duty with abilities. There's really nothing else to it, especially once they added team deathmatch. Majority of people are just gonna go play Call of Duty. No matter how much shit people talk about Call of Duty for it, no matter how much shit people talk about Call of Duty, people would much rather still just play COD rather than go play XDefiant. And that's to no fault of XDefiant. XDefiant is not a bad game. It's just when people have been playing a game franchise for so long and they're comfortable, they see no reason to go play a game that's basically COD but with minor adjustments or with, you know, minor changes that they want COD to make. Because if Call of Duty makes those changes, then those will go play Call of Duty and not play the game that came with the changes that they wanted in Call of Duty. But just a small XDefiant point, I do feel like if XDefiant came out and Black Ops 6 wasn't, you know, around the fucking corner, I feel like it would have had a longer lifespan because people weren't really messing with Modern Warfare 3, I think it was. People weren't really fucking with that game. A lot of people were still playing it, but before Black Ops 6 got announced, a lot more people were playing XDefiant than where they were after BO6 got announced. But with all those factors going into Concord's release, Concord was never meant to succeed. Concord to me felt more like an experiment to see if Sony could go into, you know, the hero shooter or, you know, multiplayer shooter, you know, genre, because Sony themselves doesn't really do that. They'll have, you know, games like Overwatch where you can play them on PlayStation, Steam, and everywhere else, but they themselves don't really dive into, you know, multiplayer shooters. They focus more on like single player games, which I'll talk about more in the video I got about Sony coming out soon. But this felt more like an experiment with Sony more than, okay, this is what we're going to focus on. This is going to be our benchmark game for 2024. This felt more like, okay, what do people want as far as a hero shooter game goes, and can they actually, you know, really break into the hero shooter genre rather than just focus on, you know, story driven single player games like they have in the past 20 years and really like they should. And it's safe to say that this experiment from Sony failed tremendously because Concord didn't even last a year, and I think it barely even lasted 3 months before it basically getting shut down. Like, they're not gonna have those servers up for long, and this is gonna be something that Sony basically forgets in like a year from now. Nobody's gonna remember Concord, and Sony's gonna make people forget about this whole experiment that they tried to do and failed miserably on. Sony just kind of needs to just stick with what they're good with and what they're known for, because multiplayer games obviously doesn't really work for them.